everybody. Welcome back to day 2 of our article on the House of Habsburg. I'm Kat.
And I'm Sam.
And so, like I said, yesterday we were learning about the Habsburgs and their one medical problem.
Right.
So they had what's called mandibular prognathism or Habsburg jaw, which is when their lower jaw sticks out really far.
Yeah, it's a very big, nasty problem.
Yeah, it can be because it led them to having trouble speaking and eating.
Right.
And, I was going to tell you a story yesterday, but I think now's a good moment. I remember
let's hear it.
I learned about the Habsburgs firsthand when I was visiting Florence in Italy, and they had like a museum with a bunch of busts of them. Busts are like a statue of the chest up.
Right.
So they had a bunch of busts of the Habsburgs in order, or the Habsburgs who ruled Florence anyway, like that part of Italy. And you could see the progression. You could see them going from like looking normal to getting uglier and uglier and uglier. And I'm sure that maybe they looked even worse than that because usually people who had like sculptures or paintings done of them in that day, they said, make me look good.
Right, I was going to say,
Yeah, there's only so good you can make them look. They really did not. They did not look good.
No, well, they must have done, because I saw, some copies of paintings. And I was like, well, surely the painter would have made them look better than real life.
Probably did. Probably did. And, it wasn't just their jaws either. Like, they have these big noses. Their eyes are kind of wide set. They just look odd. Like, they look like there's something not quite right.
Right.
Yeah. And this isn't to say like they, they were super ugly or like you're super ugly if you have a big nose. No, they looked distinctly odd.
Right.
Yeah.
You would probably take a second look if you saw them in the street.
Definitely.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. But anyway, and it was because of something that happened over the course of time. So we're actually going to learn about the cause of Habsburg jaw and what it ended up doing to this family in day 2. So let's get right into it and learn more.
Let's do it.
Reading.
Habsburg jaw. How one family's power destroyed their health. Why did so many of the Habsburgs have this problem? It wasn't just a matter of bad luck. Scholars today say that Habsburg jaw was a direct result of inbreeding among the royal family. Indeed, many of the Habsburgs wedded close blood relatives. 9 out of the 11 marriages among the Spanish Habsburgs were between family members. Similar cases of inbreeding can also be found in other royal families. These marriages were meant to keep power within the family line, but they often led to genetic problems. Over time, this had terrible effects on the health of the family's descendants. Along with Habsburg jaw, many of them had serious mental illnesses, epilepsy, and other conditions that led to early death. The male Habsburg line eventually ended in 1700 with the death of Charles II, the last Spanish Habsburg king. He was severely disabled from birth and was unable to produce children because of his many health problems. The House of Habsburg still survives today in Austria, but the family doesn't hold the power it once did. However, its members no longer suffer from Habsburg jaw either.
All right, so our article starts out today by asking the important question. Why did so many of the Habsburgs have this problem?
Well, it wasn't just a matter of bad luck.
Yeah, it wasn't like, oh, we have, this feature that naturally occurred, and now everybody has it.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of, but not really.
No.
So the reason is scholars today say that Habsburg jaw was a direct result of inbreeding among the royal family. So it was not just, oh, we had some bad luck, it was inbreeding. So first we need to learn who is a scholar. A scholar is a person who's studied a subject for a long time and they know a lot about it. Or you could say they're intelligent, they're well educated. Probably these days they would have a master's degree or a doctoral degree, a PhD.
Yeah.
And they've probably done really extensive research.
Yeah, I was about to say that as well. Yeah, a lot of research, but it's probably part of a scholar's life.
Yes. And in this case, the people who are saying about the Habsburg jaw, they're probably history scholars, or they might be people who study the human body. So they might be able to examine their remains, like their skeletons, and say like, oh, this is, in their DNA, you can see this. So, yeah, those are scholars, and here's an example. The young scholar is writing an important paper on new ideas being explored in physics. Physics being the science of how things move.
Right.
Yeah. Well, what did they say the Habsburg jaw was a result of? It was inbreeding. And inbreeding is when animals or plants or people are born from closely related parents.
Right.
So breeding is making babies.
Yeah.
And then in is, within the same family. So if brothers married sisters and had babies with them, that's inbreeding. If first cousins marry, that's arguably inbreeding.
Wow. Yeah.
Nieces and aunts or, nieces and uncles, I don't know, probably, things like that. If you're closely related and you have a baby, that's inbreeding.
Right. So it sounds like there's probably a reason why most cultures look down on inbreeding. Yeah, it's not really something we do. It's not.
Yeah, we think it's gross nowadays.
Yeah, and that's for a reason because.
And there's actually laws against it.
Right.
Like in Taiwan, I think you can't marry anybody closer than your second cousin.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. Well, that's to prevent things like Habsburg jaws.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's a good reason for it.
Yeah.
So the next vocabulary word we have is royal. Now, we've probably come across royal quite a bit in this article so far, but exactly what does it mean? Well, royal is used to describe things related to the king or queen. So like in the article, we use it to talk about the king or queen's family, the royal family. So we can also talk about it in other ways. So the prince's royal wedding was a big event for the whole country. So the royal wedding is to do with the royal family. It's to do with the kings, queens, princes, princesses, all the people connected to the king and the queen.
Yeah.
So moving on with the article. Indeed, many of the Habsburgs wedded close blood relatives. Another vocabulary word here is wed. Wed is the verb form of wedding. Now you've probably heard, marry, married. Well, it's very similar to marry. So if you're about to be wed, you will soon have a wedding and will be married. To use wed in the past tense, we can either say wedded or we can use the irregular form wed. So, my brother wed his long-term girlfriend last month. And I think we could also say my brother wedded his long-term girlfriend last month. Either one is fine.
Yeah, so to wed somebody means to marry them. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah, they wedded close blood relatives or married close blood relatives a lot. 9 out of the 11 marriages among the Spanish Habsburgs were between family members. That is a lot.
It is a lot. That's huge.
11 marriages, 9 were in family. So marriage is basically when you get married. It's the relationship that exists between two people who are husband or wife or spouse. And it's the state of being married. So, yeah, if you are in a marriage, that's different than a wedding. I think we have to point that out because a wedding is the ceremony and party where you get married. But your marriage is everything after that. So, you from the time you get married until the time you either divorce or die or something like that, you have a marriage. So you could say, So you could say, for an example, Mary and Steph's marriage is happy and full of love even after so many years. So they've been happily married for many years.
That's right. And hopefully that will continue. So the next part of the article, similar cases of inbreeding can also be found in other royal families. These marriages were meant to keep power within the family line, but they often led to genetic problems.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So it says, this happens in other royal families, and that's true. I was going to mention that earlier, but yeah, that's absolutely true.
It totally does. And I think even to a degree still today, I'm not sure. Because the royal family in Britain, I think they don't marry close relatives, but they do marry still within the nobility.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's very important to them.
So distant relatives.
Yeah.
Still relatives.
Distant relatives, yeah. Very important to them to keep power, as the article says. So a phrase, to be meant to do something, here means to be supposed to do something.
Yeah, so they were meant to keep power. Like, they're supposed to keep power, but I think the implication is they didn't really do it that well. Yeah, they didn't do a good job of it, or there was an unintended consequence. There was something that happened that they didn't account for.
Didn't know that was going to happen.
Yeah, so what it led to was genetic problems. Genetic means related to your genes. So your genes are a part of your cell that controls your appearance, your growth, your health, things like that. Basically, your DNA. Your DNA contains all your genes. So if you have genetic problems, it means you have problems with the building blocks that make up your body.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, they had genetic problems, and that genetic problem was Habsburg jaw. There were other things too. Like I said, they had large noses, they had wide-set eyes. They had other things that were inside their bodies too and that you couldn't see.
Wow.
Over time, this had terrible effects on the health of the family's descendants. So, yeah, it had some really bad effects, as we'll explain in a moment. But over time, it happened over time.
Yeah.
It means it wasn't all at once. It slowly changed through a certain period of time. In this case, it probably took at least a few generations, maybe 100 years or more.
Just as you said earlier, really.
They looked quite normal in the beginning, and then they slowly got worse and worse. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, your little story earlier has kind of demonstrated that very well, giving us a good picture.
Yeah.
So, as Kat said, we had the word effects. So, let's see, what does that mean? Effect means something that changes because of another action. In the article, we learn that the Habsburgs used inbreeding to keep power. This is the action. Terrible things then happen to the health of the family, and this is the change or the effect. So let's have another example just to make that a little bit more obvious, a little clearer. Taking strong drugs for a long time can have terrible effects on your body. So taking drugs, that's the action, and then the terrible thing that happens, the effect, is that bad things will happen to your body. They're the terrible effects.
Yeah, exactly. So who did it have this effect on? The descendants of the family. So descendant is someone who's related to a group of people who lived in the past, or a person who lived in the past. Basically, it's the later generations of a family. So when you talk about like your future children or current children, your grandchildren, maybe great-grandchildren, those are your descendants.
Yeah.
And the opposite is your ancestors. So your parents, your grandparents, great-grandparents, those are your ancestors.
That's
the people
right.
who came before you in your family are your ancestors. The people who come after are your descendants. And in this case, we're talking about the family's later generations.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The article then says, along with Habsburg's jaw, many of them had serious mental illnesses, epilepsy and other conditions that led to early death. So Kat kind of mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
There were some internal problems inside that were causing some big problems. So along with means in addition to, together with, or at the same time as. So many of the Habsburgs had Habsburg jaw together with mental illnesses. So together with, in addition to, at the same time as mental illnesses.
Yes.
Okay. But what is an illness? Well, an illness is something that causes your body or mind to be sick. If you have a cold or COVID-19, you have an illness. The type of illness talked about in the article is a mental illness, so it's one that affects your mind.
Yeah.
And I think Kat's going to probably explain that.
I guess depression is a mental illness when you're feeling constantly sad, or like there's bipolar disorder where you go between extremely happy, extremely sad. There's other ones like schizophrenia. There's borderline personality disorder.
Yeah.
There's lots and lots of different...
many mental illnesses.
Yeah,
And they can
anxiety,
be some
I
of the worst
think,
illnesses.
is one that affects a lot of people,
Yeah.
especially today.
Yeah, I was going to say increasingly so.
Yeah, yeah. And another illness that the Habsburgs had that it's quite rare, but it's quite serious as well. It's epilepsy. Epilepsy is a nervous system disorder. So basically, it's when your nerves suddenly stop working. Like you become unconscious and you have violent and uncontrolled movements in your body, which is called seizures.
Right.
So epilepsy is a seizure condition where your brain suddenly kind of goes zzz, and your body just falls on the floor and you shake a lot and can't control your movements for a little while. It's really scary. I actually have a relative who died from it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So there we go. It can be deadly too.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I think we often associate a seizure that's caused by epilepsy with lots of like flashing lights and things.
Oh,
don't
yes.
we?
Certain things can trigger it, yeah.
Yeah, although that's only one, like you say, certain things can trigger it. So that's only one example, but it seems to be the one that most people think of when they think of epilepsy.
Yeah.
Horrible thing.
Very, very bad. So, yeah, that's what the Habsburgs had. They had mental illness, they had epilepsy, all sorts of problems that were not just about their appearance. So the male Habsburg line eventually ended in 1700 with the death of Charles II, the last Spanish Habsburg king. Yeah, Charles II. And he had all the problems. Probably, many, many problems. He died at the age of, I think, 35.
Oh, wow.
He was quite young. And that's what eventually happened. Eventually is this adverb that means in the end or at some later time. So after other things happened, this is the end result. Often you'll hear people say eventually to talk about something that they need to do, but they're not going to do right now. They'll do it some other time when they're procrastinating.
Yeah, get around to it eventually.
Yeah, like, I'm not going to clean my room now. I'll do it eventually.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be this week, maybe this month, maybe this year. It's sometime.
Sounds like me. You're talking about my life story.
Oh my God. Yeah, so eventually, after some time, in the end. So another example that is similar to the article, you could say, although my singing was bad at first, I eventually got much better at it with lots of practice.
I wish that could be said for the same about my singing, but...
You can eventually get better with lots of practice too.
I hope so. I'll keep trying at KTV or wherever we might be.
Yes.
Right, the article then goes on to say, he was severely disabled from birth and was unable to produce children because of his many health problems. So basically, all the problems had got so bad that the family line had to end at that point, really, because he couldn't have children. It was just so bad, there's nothing could be done to...
Yeah, nature decided enough of this.
Exactly.
This is terrible.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah, stop doing it.
Yeah.
We'll let other people have kids instead.
Yeah.
So here we have severely. So that's the adverb form of severe, which we looked at yesterday. So it's used to mean to a great degree or a great amount. Okay. Then we have disabled. Now you might be able to work out what that means from what we've just said, but if someone is disabled, they have something wrong with their body or mind, and it doesn't work as it should.
Right. So usually it's something that affects their quality of life.
Right.
Like if they're physically disabled, they might not be able to walk or might have trouble walking. If you're mentally disabled, it means you have trouble with things like learning or maybe with having conversations with people. There's different disabilities that can show up. And he had a bunch of them.
He did.
I think he was, physically unwell, didn't had the mind of a child, I think is what I read. Yeah. So basically, he couldn't rule the country. He was only a king in name.
Yeah. So it's a case of being in power because they wanted to be in power, not because they were capable of being in power.
Yeah, exactly. They were like, we have to keep the power in the family. But by keeping the power of the throne in the family, they lost the power of life. Yeah.
Exactly.
So what happened with that? Are the Habsburgs dead? Nope. Like I said in the first day, they still are around. The House of Habsburg still survives today in Austria, but the family doesn't hold the power it once did. However, its members no longer suffer from Habsburg jaw either.
Wow.
Or any of these other problems. Yeah. So they are now, I think they're part of the kind of the equivalent of the House of Lords in Austria.
Okay.
They
Still powerful. But
yeah. They're part of the ruling body, but they are not kings. And they're just, definitely their family still holds power, but not the ultimate power.
Right.
And they don't do inbreeding anymore.
Thankfully.
Yes. So that's the end of our article on Habsburg jaw. And that means it's time for us to go to our For You chat.
For You chat.
Right, our For You chat question for today is, what other kinds of problems might be unique to important and famous families?
That's a good question.
What do we think?
Because, I mean, we're not, neither of us, I think, are part of either of those important and famous families.
No, so we have no first-hand experience of that.
Right. But I can say from what I've heard that, you think of famous people, they get no privacy.
Right.
They have... Their entire life is lived in the public eye.
Yeah.
And it can really lead to breakdowns. I think of like Britney Spears in particular.
Yeah.
There's many other examples too. I think the part of the British royal family, Harry and Meghan, had some problems recently.
That's right. Yeah, you've basically got to do what the royal family wants you to do. Because if you don't want to do something different, you want to be your own person, well, the choices are don't do that or leave the family. You've got to marry who they want you to marry in a way.
Yeah.
So you're not really free to be your own person, or at least you have to be, try to be your own person within limits.
Yeah, exactly.
And what they want.
Yeah. So, royal families, they probably have a lot of problems other than inbreeding or health problems to think about.
Yeah.
I mean, they're kind of, the figureheads of a country. And so they have to maintain a certain level of, like, looking rich. They have to be respectable in their eyes. And there's an entire section of the media that is all about their lives.
Right, exactly.
Which is crazy to me.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. You can't just decide to have a bad day.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to be on your game all the time, 24/7.
Like when I think it was Charles recently got mad over a pen. And a lot of people criticized him for it, which would not happen if he was a normal guy.
No, a normal guy sitting in an office.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be, okay, well, he's got a bit mad, but, forget about it the next day.
Yeah, exactly. So that's all we have, and that means we're going to see you in the next one. For English For You, I'm Kat.
And I'm Sam.
We'll see you next time.
See
Bye.
you.
Vocabulary Review.
Scholar. Many people think that the Dark Ages was a bad period for Europe, but some scholars don't agree. Royal. Some countries are ruled by a royal leader. Most of the rest have presidents or other government leaders. Wed. Last summer, James wedded Alice on a beach with all their friends and family present. Marriage. Mandy and Kevin had their wedding on this date last year, so tonight they're celebrating 1 year of marriage. Effect. Jack's beautiful smile has a positive effect on everyone he meets. Eventually. Our flight was delayed because of bad weather, but we eventually took off a few hours later.
智慧小补帖
Inbreeding. Genetic. Descendant. Epilepsy. Disabled.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作。活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000。 或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net